Welcome to a walk through shadows. Join us as we shine a light on all things that might possibly be strange and paranormal. Each week we will share stories that may be based in fact. It could be a complete fabrication. But as always, we will discuss each of these in depth and why they matter to us. Hello, welcome to A Walk Through Shadows. I'm your host, Charlie Romans, and with me as always is my wonderful co-host, Samantha Romans. And tonight we're going to talk about a very terrifying creature that has haunted myth and legend for basically centuries. And a lot of people are talking about it on a daily basis these days. Of course, I'm talking about skinwalkers. Like in Harry Potter, where they say, he who must not be named, that's the thing. You really don't talk about them, or there's a danger they'll show up. And we'll go more on that later. That's a type of legend that spreads out across all different cultures. But of course, the Skinwalker is a Native American shaman, essentially. And shaman were, the leaders of their people. They were spiritual advisors. They were very knowledgeable about things like how nature worked and storm patterns and historical flow of rivers and things like that. And they helped guide their people through their day-to-day lives. Well, occasionally, like happens with human beings, we have a darker side. So what a skinwalker is a shaman who has where they deal with spirits on a daily basis. A shaman has decided to deal with, we'll say, negative spirits to gain power and control over top of their fellow man. So, unless you've got something else to say about this before we get started, Sam. Okay, yeah, she already knows everything. She doesn't need to say anything. So, so we're going to wade right in with a couple of stories here. Okay, let's see. Skinwalker. The Navajo name translates to, by means of it, it goes on all fours. Believed to be a living medicine man or other tribal member who has turned evil to gain power, the legend is deeply embedded in Navajo tradition and lore and is rarely talked about to outsiders. Skinwalkers are said to be able to shapeshift by wearing animal pelts, usually wolves, foxes, and coyotes, to transform and possess the animal's strength and speed. Skinwalkers can mimic human voices, which is reported a lot, to lure victims into dark, wooded areas, no doubt for nefarious purposes. People generally agree that animals appearing to have human-like intelligence, strange, unexplained noises at night, or sudden electronic failure can be signs of a skinwalker prowling the area. It is also agreed one should never acknowledge, speak about, or make eye contact with a skinwalker to avoid bringing dangerous attention to yourself. Back in the 1930s, a man was hunting and encountered a very large deer at the foot of a mountain. He claimed he shot at the deer but missed. But instead of running away, the deer leaped towards him. The man was extremely startled and shot at the deer again, this time hitting it. Instead of dropping, the deer ran up the rocky mountainside. The hunter started tracking the deer by following the blood trail. As any of you that are hunters know, that's a common practice. He claimed the trail turned into bloody footprints on the rocks near the top of the mountain. When he reached the top, he saw a small village of 5 or 6 huts and noticed a native woman carrying bloody clothes out of one of the huts. He came to the conclusion that there was nothing natural about the deer and quietly and quickly left the area, never to hunt there again. Probably a wise decision. One night in mid-October, and this is another story here, we're starting again. One night in mid-October, I decided to take my new coonhound pups out to see what they could do. I had only been out there about an hour when I heard something that sounded like an animal trying to sneak up on me. I only had a big flashlight and a small, hold on a second. Only had a big flashlight and a small handgun. I swung the light around and caught a glimpse of something huge that ran by. knew from the tail that it wasn't a big dog. I heard the noises again, and this time I saw it. It was the biggest cat I had ever seen. We're supposed to only have bobcats in the area, but they're not huge. Some say they've seen panthers here, but the cat was even bigger. I'm talking lion or tiger sized cat. It was too close for comfort to me and my dogs, and it was slowly closing in. I did the only thing I could do. I shot it with a handgun, knowing it couldn't kill it. The cat dropped and rolled on the ground a few seconds, all the while screaming like a human woman. It jumped up, used its front legs to push itself into an upright standing position on its hind legs, looked in my direction once, and then started running away like a human. It jumped the creek that way and then disappeared into the dark. Very interesting. Okay, here's another one. My dad was clearing old family property. The house was in horrible shape, excuse me, so he was living in a small camper on the property. I went to stay with him to help. One morning he went to work and I got up to start the day clearing more of the grounds. I sat down with my coffee and cigarette in front of the camper. I clearly heard my dad's voice yelling for me from behind the camper. He was calling me by name, saying he needed me and to hurry up. I called my dad's cell phone, and when he answered, he told me he was at work and wouldn't be home until after 5. I hung up and peeked around the side of the camper and saw a large shadow moving around. I hurried inside the camper, locked the door, and stayed inside until after lunch. A couple of weeks later, I went into the woods adjoining the property, crossing an old wooden fence behind the camper. I was looking for a weird rock formation my dad had told me about. As I hiked, I started to hear whistling and other odd sounds. I got out of there as fast as I could. That night, I heard something walking around the camper. I opened the shades and saw a deer coming around the end of the camper. It looked like a real deer, but it was much larger and it was walking upright on 2 legs. Also, its eyes were on the front of its head instead of the sides, and that would be a truly strange looking deer. Okay. It walked straight to the high window and looked right into my eyes. The window was about 6 feet off the ground. I screamed. The deer didn't flinch, but it woke my dad up and he saw it too. It finally dropped back to all 4 feet and walked back into the woods. The next day, we moved the camper right up against the old house as far away from the woods as possible.
I would too.
Well, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. You know, uh, I am at least moderately a product of my age, so my contemporaries be saying, I've been out there with a shotgun. I've been, yeah, sure you would. And if you actually were unfortunate and lacked good sense and did that, we probably would not have had the conversation. You probably couldn't tell anybody.
These stories always bother me.
Okay.
Because a lot of my family that live up where I live believes that there's a skinwalker in my woods.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like things that I've heard about skinwalkers and the things that they do, I can't completely say they're not true. Like I've heard whistling at night.
Yeah, okay.
And like last week, I was talking about the deer that the eyes didn't light up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that easily could have been Skinwalker instead of a Wendigo,
Right.
Which a lot of people do confuse Wendigos and Skinwalkers.
Well, I was going to say, based on these stories, it'd be easy to confuse you, but go ahead.
Yeah. But, up in the holler where I live, it's 140 acres split into 70 and 70 acres. And, like, my uncle has said before that he's heard me calling for him. He's heard, his children calling for him. He's heard people talking that are not there. So, like, it's possible.
This started before you were born. There's up on the rise there, like she said, it's 140 acres. And most of it's hillside and woods. And her uncle, my brother in law, said that there's a place up in there, and he hunts all the time. He's an avid hunter, very good at it. Uh, and he's familiar with all the natural woodland noises, day, night, weekend. It doesn't matter, he knows. But he said there's a place up there you will hear people calling your name, and it will be people that you know. Sometimes it's living people, and sometimes it's deceased people, which kind of harkens back to, well, in Appalachia. Most of the Appalachian Mountains were settled by, as old buddy of mine, Sockle, used to say, stiff necked Scotch Irish immigrants. Okay. Well, they had a large history of weird stuff out in the woods that you don't want to mess with. But you always hear the old timers around here saying, if you're out in the woods and you hear somebody call your name, no, you didn't. If you hear a weird noise, no, you didn't. Get out of there. Don't acknowledge it. Don't pay attention to it. And my brother-in-law has never answered when something has called his name, and I'm glad that he hasn't, because I don't think my feet would handle walking over 140 acres looking for my brother-in-law, because I'm kind of fond of him, actually. So now these stories creep you out. What is the main thing that creeps you out about these stories?
I think it's just the not knowing.
Not knowing.
Because I feel like animals are inherently not really evil.
No.
They will, kill you and eat you, but
absolutely.
it's just to survive.
Yes.
So like if you come up on a bear and it's hungry enough, like it's going to chomp your head off.
Well, yeah. Or if you threaten it
yeah.
young.
But people can be evil, and in these tales, it's literally evil people that have become skinwalkers.
Absolutely, yes.
So there is no good outcome.
No.
When you find a skinwalker, there is no, oh, that's a bear, I'm going to walk the other way. It's, oh, it will hunt you down. If it decides that it wants you, like, you're done for.
Well, absolutely, because most people would think that this is along the lines of, like, say, a lycanthrope, like in the movies. Once, the poor cursed soul turns into a werewolf, then that person's no longer there. It's all the monster. Okay. Well, in the case of Skinwalker, no, they gain the abilities of the animal, but they maintain their human intelligence. So, like you said, no getting away from the bear, because the bear will track you down, come up and knock on your front door.
Yeah.
So, or knock through your front door.
And the thing is, too, like, you don't know which animal it is. You could just come up on what you think is just a normal dog. You're just like, oh, it's a cute dog, and then it's got like human features and it's wrong. It's like the whole not deer thing.
Yeah.
This twisted human like creature that's still a deer, but then it's got sharp teeth and like, ugh.
Well, absolutely. We were looking at a show earlier, song about the Irish Kelpie. Okay, Kelpie is a shape changer, and it can take on whatever form it needs to. And mostly it's known for taking on the form of a beautiful horse, and attracts young kids to get on the back of the horse. And of course, once then you're done, because it takes you to the water, drowns you, and eats you. But it is actually a malevolent spirit that appears that way.
Yeah.
Now, but the whole myth about shape shifting is across a large number of cultures, and for numerous reasons. For the most part, the shape shifting becomes, well, I mean, it's motivated by, if nothing else, if it's not necessarily evil, by greed and the desire to dominate. Okay. Now, some, in very few cases, like in Irish mythology, there was a group of people who shape shifted, and they were, overall good. They served the kingdom, but they shape shifted by means of a magical fur belt. But now, for the most part, it is not considered to be a good thing.
No, I mean, like you said, most cultures do have some form of shapeshifter, but like none of them are good.
No,
like,
no.
All of them are out for nefarious reasons.
Absolutely, yes. Well, the thing of it is, and I've studied this stuff for years, but I always thought about back in the Middle Ages. Then some of these small villages in Europe were during a cold winter were wiped
Mhm.
out by wolves. And although wolves are big, potentially mean creatures, typically they avoid humans. But when all the game is scarce and you're hungry, well, then suddenly, Bob's looks more like a cheeseburger than a human being, so you're going to attack him.
Mhm.
And I've said this before, probably ad nauseum, but I always think about this peasant there in his hut, and he's got his dog in there. Rover's laying at his feet, and he can hear the wolves howling out there, and he's looking at Rover and thinking, he's got more in common with the thing outside than he does me.
Mhm.
So, but as you said before, animals normally, well, you don't attribute evil. Evil seems to be a uniquely human condition. Uh, but and I've said this before too. In the case of a shapeshifter, like in a werewolf, it's not the wolf part of werewolf that makes it evil; it's the
Yeah.
man part. So it's no wonder these things are terrifying. But uh, why would you not, though? I mean, think about it from step back from I don't know, from just a philosophical outlook
Mhm.
on it. Uh, why would you not want to be able to run like a wolf? Why would you not want to be able to fight like a lion or be so physically imposing like a bear?
I mean, I think it's cool, but I don't think the trade off is worth it because, like, a lot of stories tell of them having to do something extremely evil
Yes,
to get those powers,
right.
like killing a close family member.
Mhm.
And I mean, like I said, it'd be cool to, have the attributes of an animal, but I'm not going to like knock you off
Well, I
and,
appreciate that.
to get those powers. So, I mean, like, it's obviously not good and not good intentions if they have to do something so evil to obtain them.
So what you're saying is essentially the price is too high,
Yeah.
and paying the price makes you lose. At this point, I would guess your tenuous grip on your humanity.
Which they say that, like, when they're in their human form,
Yes.
their eyes are like animalistic and like they have like kind of gone too far with it.
Yes.
And then, of course, when they're in their animal forms, they are, still keeping, human attributes. But, like, as a person, they're, like, gone, And if you do something that evil, I mean, I kind of see why you'd be gone. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because,
yeah. Well,
like,
see,
what grasp on humanity do you have at that point?
well, you make an excellent point because I'm going to take them for instance. We'll say werewolf because that's one of the most easily recognizable
Mm-hmm.
involuntary shapeshifters.
Yeah.
So theoretically, what happens is that Bob becomes a werewolf. Well, while he may understand that he's changed, but Bob really doesn't remember what he did as the wolf.
Yeah.
So it's not eroding his sense of self, other than the horror aspect of it, which would be
Mm-hmm.
terrible. But in the case of a person who does this intentionally, even as a human, it's got to be looking at somebody walking down the street, think they'd be good with French fries.
Yeah.
And I'm being a little flippant, but uh, eventually, the negative actions, negative thoughts, always take over.
Yeah. Because I feel like once you've gone past that, like, threshold, there's no real coming back from that.
Right.
Like, once you've done something so evil, I think that even if you decide to be good and to do good things, there still has to be in the back of your mind, like, those thoughts.
Right.
So you're not, like, completely, like, cured of it.
Exactly. And it would be hard to give up that power.
Yeah.
And we've exhibited. I mean, well, think about something that is as relatively simple as just changing a habit, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. Now, we won't go into any addictive properties, anything like that, but just say you got a moderately unpleasant habit. To change that habit takes a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you take something that was such physically and emotionally altering thing as becoming a skinwalker,
Yeah.
plus, it's not like they just accidentally did that.
No, they have to do that on purpose.
And they started out as a spiritual advisor of sorts. They started out as the leaders of the community, and their whole thing was to benefit their people. Then suddenly they
Mm-hmm.
uh, make a deal with some negative spirits, and suddenly they're feeding off of everything.
Yeah, that kind of betrayal just, you know, kind of cements the type of person that it would have to be to become that.
Right, exactly. I agree 100%. Now, uh, there are other precedents in history, the whole transformation thing. I know one thing I did really doesn't have anything to do with shapeshifters, other than a lot of the old legends about the original wizards. I'm talking long before Harry Potter was ever created, long before Gandalf or anything else. The wizards in history from throughout Europe and Scandinavia and things like that. They would begin by in the interaction by saying all the things that they had become. They would say they'd become everything, had become everything, taken on shape of everything from bubbles in beer to Starlight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, possibly they could, because none of these really old wizards were actually human. They were more spirit than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But according to legend, I wasn't there. Okay. Uh, but really, it was a way of explaining that they understood their world. So the transformation thing has been a theme that has run for the last 10,000 years. Uh, Now, there's a lot of, well, I mean, there's different ways to become a skinwalker, and I'm not going to go into that specifically. We've touched on a little bit. Basically, you got to become a shaman first, and then walk darker paths. But there are some ways to protect yourself. Now, in a physical world, even though a lot of their abilities are granted, I guess you could say, by dark energies, but unlike the Wendigo, which is a spirit, we talked
Mm-hmm.
about that last time, they are very similar. And honestly, that spirit might be one of them that grants the shaman the ability to
Yeah.
become skinwalkers. But since they are a physical creature, they are locked into and subservient to certain physical laws. Now, possibly you could shoot it with a regular bullet or an arrow and not kill it. But if you were to uh, take white ash and burn it and put the ashes from this white ash onto bullets, or I'm assuming spears or arrows, then that has the ability to kill the skinwalker, because that uh, white ash itself is known to have certain metaphysical properties, we'll say. And you could also use that ash to spread around your home and your grounds and everything else. And it's supposed to be able to prevent a skinwalker from coming onto your grounds. Now, they are incredibly hard to kill, and I wouldn't go at one with a baseball bat. That would be ill advised,
Yeah.
even if it was a baseball bat made out of white ash, because you never really know these days. Uh, so, although the heft of an aluminum ball bat is quite satisfying. Uh, but I had a friend once, he liked to go monster hunting, and he carried this 44 Magnum. I said, Dave, that anything you're looking for, if you run into it, that gun is useless. He said, yeah, but it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
I said, okay. But you have to take proper steps. And there are rituals that can be performed, according to legend, that will redirect the evil back on the skinwalker. Uh, and what I would recommend if you're interested in this, I mean, do some research. Don't just take every website that pops up, because there's always a bunch of things that pop
Yeah.
up, and not all of it is necessarily accurate. And always, well, avoiding them's better because you really don't know if you've been told right and if you've got all the right stuff. I saw a really cool cartoon once, actually, with a werewolf, and this uh, fighter has stuck a silver sword through this werewolf, and the werewolf's grinning. And the fighter's like, "What do you mean you've been taking allergy shots?" so, so we never really know what's going to be effective. I would assume, however, with some of the old legends, that uh, supposedly any weapon blessed by a priest can have an effect on a creature that has anything to do with, any kind of negative energy. So,
My only issue with that is, I mean, do they abide by the same rules?
well, and that's always the thing because you wonder because there's different religions. It's like, and I am a font of useless information. I apologize for running rabbit holes, but it's like, for instance, a Japanese vampire isn't affected by holy water
Mhm.
and or crosses, and they can turn invisible. And because they can turn invisible, they lose the ability to charm uh, other, humans, as like the other vampires are supposed to say, but supposed to be able to do rather. But you wonder if these entities, they're so similar. Uh, I was watching the movie years ago called Jeepers Creepers, and as a matter of fact, they had the truck and I think actually the creeper there at Scarefest one year, didn't they? Okay, so I'm watching this and I'm thinking, everybody's like, "What is that? What is it?" It's the creeper. I said, well, actually, what it looks like is a Middle Eastern vampire, like from Saudi Arabia and places like that. And honestly, all you can do when you run into one of those is leave because they pretty much nothing stops them according to legend. And but they will not leave the range that they have chosen. So essentially, you get 2 foot out of their range, you're safe because they won't chase you.
That's the least comforting.
Yeah, it is because especially when something moves 10 times faster than you. Uh, my car drives pretty fast. I mean, I've had it up to like 80, 90 miles an hour. Don't tell my wife. But I'm pretty sure this thing moves fast enough. You'd probably catch me before I got to the car.
Yeah,
So,
that would be my problem. If I
yeah.
could get to the car, I could get away. But getting there, I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. So the best thing to do is avoid most
Yeah.
of this stuff. And I know for everyone that's curious and that likes to stroll through the shadows and dig around for ghosts and goblins or whatever, what have you. We need to do an episode on the difference between ghouls and vampires and everything too. But even though you like to do that, always be safe because uh, well, you may not be able to fight something off or prevent it from coming in on you.
I mean, that works too for physical and non physical things,
Yes.
you know. But, I mean, a lot of stuff, there's like a way to get rid of it, but stuff like Skinwalkers, like, it's kind of, you just die, you know?
Well, yeah, and there are ways to delay these things. It's like, well, the mountain ash, for instance. I'm not really sure how often you'd have to replenish that, but say you could go around your entire yard, the border of your yard with ash from a mountain ash, and but if you live in a windy place, you live in a rainy place, you don't really know the return on that.
Yeah.
So, plus, if I see something like that, I'm thinking, well, I got some dust out in the yard. So I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's not really that much of a barrier because you'd think, well, just step over it.
It's like a salt ring out in the rain.
Yes. So, I mean, but opinions vary, and I would uh, caution people to not spend, well, Don't provoke the spirits. If you think one's out there, consult somebody that knows something. Do your research and always be safe. Anyway, kind of like my buddy Dave, it would be comforting to have a high powered firearm around somewhere.
I want something a little bigger. At least something that I knew would work a little bit.
Yeah, see, well, I would like, I was talking to your mom earlier. I said, well, yeah, put down some ash dust, and it'd be comforting also to have a running chainsaw because,
Or also, fire's supposed to be able to kill them. Just a flamethrower.
well, yes,
You know, just
definitely, a burn-zomatic,
what is it? Elon Musk selling
Oh, yeah,
flamethrowers
that's
now?
right, yes.
I'll get one of those. Yeah, at wintertime it'll get rid of my ice, and
Yeah.
in the summers, the creepy nights of the summers where you don't hear anything except for whistling. You've always got it right there to
Well,
take care of anything.
fire seems to cover almost anything. It's a good purgative, and it prevents a lot of supernatural or cryptid activity, we'll say.
I have to wonder. So, the sun is, um, thought to be the good of the
Yes.
world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the moon is the evil of the world.
Uh-huh.
Things that are evil are mostly nocturnal, whereas, holy things are, during
Mm-hmm.
the day in the sunlight out in the open. I have to wonder if fire is just the closest thing we have to the sun. So that's the reason why it's so effective.
It's funny that you should say that because as we were talking, I remember years ago, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and little Charlie Romans was in grade school, they used to have these books, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and a lot of other period pieces with these horror stories. And one of the stories I read in this was about this basically black blob. They called it the Black Hood that lived in the swamps.
Mm-hmm.
And swamps are always relatively dark and everything when they're overgrown. And he mentioned that they killed it. It actually killed it with a flamethrower.
Mm.
And the writer mentioned that's why it had avoided the light because the sun and fire could kill it.
Great. Theoretically, I mean, it makes sense that that is the closest thing we have to a sun,
Yes.
and like vampires, burning them in their coffins
Yes.
is supposed to kill them. Stuff like that. A lot of supernatural creatures, fire like ghosts, malevolent spirits. You're supposed to be able to burn their bones, and
Right.
then they won't come back and stuff like that.
Well, like I said, I mean, fire pretty much is the ultimate purgative. It is a remedy for almost anything that wants to ail you. Uh, so whether you can burn a werewolf, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
you say it's only silver will kill it, but I'm sure a flamethrower would make a dent.
Yeah.
And so I guess the best thing to do would be a rifle with a silver bayonet and a flamethrower strapped to it. That would be good cryptid, nefarious monster hunting gear.
And it does explain too, like in a lot of stories of ookie spookies,
Yeah.
they don't come around campfires.
No, they don't.
They wait until the fire is out, and like everybody's in their tents and stuff. They don't really like sneak up on them when they're sitting around the fire. So I think that has like some you know thing to it. That is something they don't like,
Right.
because I mean, if you are sitting there throwing some back with the bros,
Yeah.
around a campfire, half drunk already,
Mm-hmm.
like that's the perfect time to pounce on you.
Oh, you would think so, yeah.
You're distracted, mm-hmm. and the light would make the shadows darker and stuff. Mm-hmm. So
yes,
it may be easier to sneak up on them. Because, like, let's face it, campfire does not go that far.
No, it doesn't. I'll tell you what. You get a bunch of the bros sitting around, drinking and telling stories to one another. Yeah, Bigfoot could just walk right up to the camp and say, "Hey guys, what's up?" Because they're not paying attention.
Yeah, and So if something is nefarious, like if it's a person,
Yes.
I feel like a person would sneak up on somebody in around a campfire. But you never hear about, you know, nefarious creatures doing that kind of thing.
Well, see, I think part of that is most of the time these creatures, when they hunt as uh, pretty much a natural predator would hunt. A lion, for instance, could charge into a group of people and kill 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
But a lion prefers to actually pick off the slowest and the weakest.
Yeah.
It's the way predators operate. So uh, a bright campfire would dissuade that because it eliminates the sneak factor. And in nature, fire generally doesn't occur. It only occurs after you've had something like a lightning strike or something like that. It's not just suddenly manufactured. It's like the old saw in the movies about time travel movies where a guy pulls out a big lighter and says, "I made fire," and everybody's freaking out. Okay, in the natural world, fire is associated with other catastrophes,
Yeah.
so they would probably naturally shy away from it.
Yeah, that is true.
So now to circle back to these stories that we have told, what are your opinions? What do you think? Which ones do you think are true and which ones are false?
I mean, I think any of them could be true. Um, I'm not sure the one about the camper is true because honestly, I feel like people are too stupid to actually move their camper away
Okay, well,
from.
number one, the first part of the first story. Okay, what did you think about that?
Which one was the first one? The
Oh,
guy camping.
it's the guy that is following the deer that he shot. Yes. Okay. Okay, here we go.
I think
Yeah.
that one would be cool if it was true. I don't know if it is, um, but I think that it would be really cool if it was true.
Yes, the one that saw the overly large deer and shot at it
Yeah.
and followed it to. Okay, now that story was reported as true. Supposed to have happened to a man in Utah, which, I mean, the terrain in a lot of Utah would lend itself well to things like that. There's a lot of things that could hide. We like to think that instantly we think maybe, especially in Appalachia, we can hide out in the trees. But rough ground, thing like that, it's just as easy to hide. Caverns, whatever. Okay. Now, what about the second story? What do you think about that?
Which one was the second
Okay,
story?
let me back up here. Okay. That's the one about the camper, I believe, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's see. This guy with the coonhound pups and everything.
Oh, is that the one where it like got up on two legs and ran off?
Yes. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true or false?
I feel like it wouldn't run on two legs that far because I feel like it would be faster on four legs. So I feel like that one about has to be false just because, like I said, it would be faster on four legs. Okay. So if it was trying to get away, and also like it would kind of like blow its cover that way.
Okay, that one is actually complete fiction. And the reason I know that it's complete fiction is because my wife and your mom wrote that story, which is a good story, compelling story, but it is unfortunately fake. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. Mm-hmm. What about number three? About the camper. You said that you thought that was weird. They didn't have that much sense.
Yeah. See, I want to think that people have more sense. But then I also watch horror movies, and like the people are like, "Oh, there was a sound in the house. Let me like go investigate." Whenever you know that no one else should be there, and it's just like, "Nah, girl, just hunker down with a gun and just like hide." Which I say that, and I'm also the person that if I heard something ooky spooky in my house, I would have to go look at it.
It's just like that meme, yelling, "Is somebody there?" And the serial killer says, "Yeah, I'm in the kitchen. You want a sandwich?"
Yeah. But I mean, there's been lots of times where I've heard something outside or seen something outside, and I've run outside to go check it out. So I mean, I am fully aware that I also don't have any sense.
Well, it's not actually a question of sense or no sense. Uh, your mother and I were sitting on our back porch, and of course, you know where the back porch is,
Mhm.
looking out over the field and everything. And we were discussing something like that. Well, now, if somebody come walking across that field
Mhm.
dressed like Michael Myers,
Yeah.
then we'd be looking at each other and say, okay, who is that idiot? Is that one of our neighbors just trying to pull something on us? And theoretically, it could be too late for you to realize, no, that's actually a serial killer.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, uh, well, the curiosity gets to you before that. I guess a healthy dose of paranoia would.
Yeah, I'm a very curious creature. So, um, but I don't know. I think that if they wouldn't have pulled the camper over towards the house, I would have believed it. But by them adding that in, I feel like it almost has to be like extra, like ooh,
Okay, that well, and I'm not going to disagree with you. However, that story was supposed to have been true. It happened to a man in Tennessee.
So he was actually smart. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I did not have enough faith in humanity.
Well,
I was figuring everybody had to be too dumb to do that.
you know me. You've known me for a number of years now.
Mhm.
When something like that happens, my initial response is I get mad.
Mm-hmm.
And any fear, I guess, would not kick in until after a really unreasonable length of time.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody's out there messing around. If I hear something crashing around the garage, I'm going outside with a flashlight. Yeah. I'm going to ask somebody why they're going through my garage. Mm-hmm. Of course, that would be the part in a Stephen King movie where I get killed by the werewolf.
Yeah, obviously.
So, but it's strange how we react to those things. And honestly, it's strange how these types of stories perpetuate themselves across centuries, across continents and oceans and everything. So, what is your take, your thoughts on skinwalkers?
Well, I feel like if something were to be real, that's of the same kind of vein. I mean, shapeshifters seem realistic to me, not in like a people can change into wolves, like that seems reasonable, but like every like continent, every ancient history, they all have something that is similar.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know if it's just a human fear of humans being able to change into other things, and that is just scary. So it's just everyone came up with that same awful, idea, or if there was at least something that could shapeshift, and that's where they got it from. You know what I mean?
That's possible. I mean, so many things. Well, honestly, almost anything's got a small germ of truth in it. Mm-hmm. And things can be possible if not actually plausible.
Yeah.
It's like, so for instance, I'm 5'9", and if you go by the traditional belief on how this whole lycanthropy thing works, to start with, my body mass would increase; it would double, and then my height would increase by 50%. So I would suddenly, my 5'9" frame would suddenly be close to 8 feet tall. So that I'm not really sure how that would work. And there would almost have to be some sort of supernatural agent.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like there are things that can be described, or I guess describe is not really the best word for that. Can be religious based, or spiritual based, and not necessarily science based. Because I think that there's things that like we personally can't understand. Because like, how does it make sense that like twins have like the twin telepathy.
Oh yeah.
That scientifically that doesn't make sense really.
But
But
it's
like
been documented numerous times.
if you do like a spiritual thing, like where they were, one person split into two,
yes,
or at least they shared the same womb, that gives them that kind of spiritual connection. So I think that there are things that science can't explain that are out there that, you know, like it's like with cryptids, we thought the mountain gorilla
yes,
was not a real thing.
mm-hmm.
And then now we have them in zoos.
Exactly, yeah.
So I feel like anything could be out there, that we just can't explain with science yet. So we just say, oh, it's not actually there.
Well, yeah, and this may sound like a cop out, but we only know what we know.
Mm-hmm.
And worse than that, we only know what we're able to know.
Yeah.
100 years from now, somebody might be watching this, hopefully. I probably won't be around, but somebody will be watching this. You idiots, it's Scientific Law 37. You've never heard of that because they've already figured it out maybe 100 years from now.
Yeah.
So we have a tendency to say, if we haven't figured it out yet, it's not real. Well, that really just isn't the case.
And I think too that there's some things that we used to know that we no longer know, because if things weren't well documented, like there's a lot of things that we found at like archaeological sites that we have no idea what they were used for because they were so mundane that nobody wrote about them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe nobody wrote how to play this game because like there's like this hoop thing.
Right. Yes. I know what you're talking about.
That I think it was a Native American thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like for the longest time, nobody could figure out how to play it, but there was no like written accounts of how to play it because everybody knew how to play it.
Well, and on a more flippant note, there was a commercial, Pepsi, a commercial years ago, and they were doing an archaeological dig in modern times, but this was far flung future. And some guy picks up a baseball and they said they used to hurl these at each other with incredible force. Okay, not knowing what's going on, it just found it. I'm like, oh, what's this?
Well, it's like, so the game Fallout is supposed to be, what is it, 2078 or something, 2077 when the bombs drop?
That, yes.
And
an alternate timeline.
Yeah. So then 200 years in the future is when, most of the Fallout games take place.
Okay.
And so at that point, all the people that knew anything about current times were long dead, except for the ghouls. And a lot of those had lost their minds. So a lot of people didn't, believe them. And so like in like Fallout 4, they're talking about baseball, like in the Pepsi commercial.
Right.
And they're like, oh, it used to be this bloody sport and all this stuff. And it's like the sole survivor's just like, what? No, it's not, because the sole survivor was frozen and was from when the bombs dropped.
Exactly.
So they knew what our current lives were like, instead of this futuristic, look at what it was. So, I mean, I feel like we've kind of done that. And I feel like too, there could be things that like we've become slee stacks about.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
we have this horrible habit of every 2 or 3 generations we have to reinvent the wheel, and we do that because, in fact, we are quite stubborn and stiff-necked and refuse to learn. So knowledge just falls by the wayside. And I reached around and pulled this off of my shelf here. I'm a big fan of books. Big fan of actually studying and doing research. I have right here, now it doesn't have a huge amount of things about skinwalkers or anything like that in there, but it tells a lot about American Indian myths and legends. Excellent book, good read. And It's by, well, selected and edited by Richard Erdos and Alfonso Ortiz. So, uh, very much enjoyed the book. It's very informative, but it's not the only resource out there. You can delve into this and uh, find out more about what the native peoples believed. Nothing against the internet, but I put more stock in books rather than I do websites simply because a book has been researched, it's been edited, and everything else. So several eyes have been on it, ideally, to determine whether or not it's accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I can put anything on a website. Uh,
But going back to like us, like losing knowledge. I mean, think
yes.
about like the pyramids, even.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the pyramids. We have no idea how they built them. You know, and that's stumping people. You know, all the way in 2026, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, at the time, it probably was just like, oh yeah, we just do this and it just works. You know.
See, part of the problem is we don't, in fact, have a hive mind. Humans
Yeah.
don't. Okay. Uh, for instance, you may have learned a couple of things from me,
Mhm.
but you don't know my thoughts.
Yeah.
So what happens is every 2 or 3 generations we get incredibly stupid because we come up with new knowledge, and of course the new knowledge is bright and shiny, and we're attached to it because we've got new stuff. So we throw away the old stuff.
I mean, we even have thrown away new old stuff. You
Absolutely,
know,
yeah,
like how many kids today know how to dial a rotary phone?
yeah.
Like they don't need to know how to do that, so of course they don't know how to do
And
that.
of course, it's been several years since I've had an infant in the home. Do they even make the little dial phones for newborns?
I think so.
I need to check on that because your cousin just got a new baby. I have to go get him a rotary phone
Yeah.
just to annoy your cousin.
Um,
So,
but I mean, like even things like churning butter.
yes.
You know, unless you go to like an old fashioned days, nobody churns butter. Nobody would probably even know how to turn butter anymore.
No, they wouldn't. They
And
didn't even have a concept of it.
I mean, that wasn't like that long ago. I mean, like it's been a while, but like you know, it's not like it was ancient times. It you know that
No.
was still used. You
Well,
know, somewhat recently.
well, when I grew up, almost everyone's mother and grandmother canned vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I guess by this time I was in my 40s, I think it was. I was trying to do a piece about canning uh, for the newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
and I like never found someone that's still canned. And found a lady who was just a couple years older than me and said that her grandmother had taught her. But we lose that knowledge. Ironically, on the subject of canning, uh, the can was invented before the can opener, and it was actually modern canning was actually invented by Napoleon. A little bit of useless information there. Started a contest to see anybody who could preserve food for his huge army,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and then so they would ship these cans, and the original cans were made and put together by blacksmiths. And they had no way of opening, so they bash them up with rocks or cut them open with their bayonets on their rifles. And if you'll look, the really old can openers look like a little miniature bayonet.
That's true.
Yeah,
I hadn't
but
thought about that.
yeah, but no, I'm growing up in Appalachia. Everybody canned. My aunt Anna who wasn't exceptionally country, made some delicious hot crowds. But just a generation, it was lost.
Yeah.
And or like my friend Roger, you know Roger, of course. Uh, Talking about the zombie apocalypse. If we have the zombie apocalypse hits, how long would it take the shells to empty out? Well, the answer is within a few days, really.
Yeah.
And the problem with that being is that I technically know how to farm.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a farmer. He grew up as a farmer. He taught me a little bit of it. Not as good a farmer as my brother-in-law, but he can grow anything on a rock. Still, that aside, if I had to plant it right now, it's at least 6 months before I can eat out of it.
Yeah.
So it's best to not lose the information or relearn the information before we actually need it.
Honestly, I think that was one of the good things about COVID. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was not very many good things about
No.
COVID, but a lot of like lost arts were revitalized.
Yes.
Like thinking about bread in 2019, how many people made bread?
Hiders.
But I mean, like at their house, like almost
No,
nobody
no.
made bread unless they were like a crunchy mom.
Again, I'll throw out the soft clay thing. He made sourdough. He loves sourdough bread. But go ahead.
But I mean, like most people did not make bread.
No.
And then in 2020, people were all like, "Oh, well, we have to be home all the time, so let's have sourdough starters, and
Yes.
let's feed it all the time and give it funny names." And now they have like pet sourdough, and they make bread all the time. Like
Right.
even one of my friends just started making bread, and like literally 2019, I never heard of anyone making bread really, unless it was like a funny one-off, like, oh, I decided to make some pizza dough, like that kind of thing. Nobody just did it to just do it.
Well, that's a good example of a bad situation having some positive repercussions. And I know we've taken off down numerous rabbit holes on this, but circling back to the initial discussion about skinwalkers, it's safe to assume that nothing about a skinwalker is good.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure they're good for themselves. So the best thing to do is avoid them if possible.
Yeah.
Keep a good supply of mountain ash around. And salt is always a good thing. So, salt is a good preventative for anything supernatural or nefarious. But if you think that you've encountered something like that, do your research. And there are qualified, I guess, resources on that you can find online. But I said as I prefer uh, hard copy books, preferably books that were published like back in the 30s. So uh, before it was so prevalent for people to just trail out information and act like it's right.
Yeah, especially now we have like books being written by AI, and
Yes.
like that always ends up kind of a hot mess.
And these are shortcuts. It's not necessarily that people are being bad about it, but when it's okay to take a shortcut if you know the long cut.
Yeah.
But if all you know is the shortcut, then information falls off like an overloaded truck, and you're scattering all the good stuff down the road as you bounce along life. So if you're going to research something online, always get peer-reviewed articles and things like that nature.
Honestly, I think the best thing is, like you said, just to stay away from it, because like I know, like when I'm out there at night and like everything's quiet except for a whistle, I'm just like in that house, like, and I've heard my name. And my friends that have like stayed at my house have heard me talk to them whenever I've been gone and stuff. Because like there's been times where I've like run to the Dollar General, and like one of my friends is at my house, and like they will hear me come back,
Right.
and I'm not there and stuff like that, and they're like, nope, no, you didn't
Well,
hear it.
yes, that's true. Now, the only saving grace, now don't bank on this, never put your safety at risk. But the only saving grace, if there is one to this, is that for the most part, uh, skinwalkers operate more to uh, actually to aggravate and to annoy. They're not like, for instance, the Wendigo that straight up wants to eat you and all your family. Uh, Skinwalkers can be avoided uh, once they get what they want, but if at all possible, avoid them and take steps to protect yourself. And for God's sake, don't invite them in.
Yeah, definitely not.
You watch some of these paranormal shows, and people saying, "Oh, somebody talk to me, follow me home." I'm like, that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, I just want to say this now for the record. Don't follow me home.
Yeah,
Nothing follow me home.
it's
I'm
it's
good.
it's like calling up Freddy Krueger and say, "Hey, Mr. Sandman, send me a dream."
Yeah.
Some things just don't make much sense.
No.
So always try to let logic apply, and always be safe. So
Yeah.
Well, I guess hopefully this wasn't too much of a shambling, staggering walk through the shadows. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and feel free to send us a message and let us know what you would like us to talk about in future episodes. And as I've said before, I'll say again, if you enjoyed this, like and share because unlike most things these days, that's still free. Have a good night. Thank you for being our companion on this week's walk through the shadows. Join us next week when we will share more stories of the paranormal. Until then. This quiet path is all